Hello, welcome to today's cue breakdown. We are going to look at a bit of house music or house dance crossover. It's a bit different to the other cue breakdowns I've done because it does rely quite heavily on samples rather than VSTs or sample libraries. I think the best thing to do is have a listen to it, and then I'll break down the different parts. Follow along as it goes through, and I'll try and click on the different parts as we go through. And if this is your sort of thing, don't forget, like and subscribe is always appreciated. Okay, let's have a listen. Okay, there's a bit of house music. Let's go through it from top to bottom, and the section in yellow are pretty much all samples. Then we come down to the guitar pluck, which is sort of a sample that I made using a bounce in place from the Electric Mint guitar. We've got transitions and whooshes from Damage, and then finally Mosaic bass at the bottom. The key to these sort of tracks, well, with any cue obviously, is to try and keep the momentum moving in and out. You don't want samples to be isolated either, because if somebody else has exactly the same sample isolated on its own, it can cause a bit of an issue with music libraries and copyright. So we try and avoid that as much as possible. Along with, you can do things like change the EQ, the band passes. You can reverse samples, you can chop samples up so they're not sort of straight out of the box. That's usually a good rule of thumb if you are using samples. And then what I've done is layered in some other parts as well. So let's go through and start with this acid bass at the top. So let's just zoom in a bit. It starts here, and I believe that has volume automation to bring it in. Yeah. Later on there is a band pass, so we cut out the higher frequencies. You'll hear that come in now. And again, we turn that on and off through the track to give it some motion. Next, Agile Lead is this sample. Now, here's an example of chopping it up. So to extend that first section, what I've done is chopped it and repeated it So it stays on the same note or the same set of chords, which is a nice way of moving things around. Then we've got Airy Vox. Again, we've got a low cut frequency on this, so you'll hear that change. And again, that happens a bit later on, but slightly more severely. So again, that's where the riser is happening. So and then by the end of the riser it's back in. There's also, I've taken off the very bottom of the EQ there. Okay, so there's our Airy Vox. Now we get to synth chords. Nothing much going on here apart from again just shortening one of the samples at the end. So that's fairly simple. That leads into this, probably one of the main parts of the tune is the kick sound that we've got here going on. With some nice little effects in the background. Then I've got the reverses and the snares. I've put them on the same track just because I ended up with the same Chromaverb on them. If it's an audio track, it doesn't really matter that much. So there's your reverse, and then there's this snare fill. I don't need to play it all for you. It starts off like that and ends like... And that's just a matter of lining this up to make sure it hits exactly where you want it to finish. So there's a few of those and a few reverses. There's also that hyper riser that we just heard when listening to that Airy Vox. And at the end, I believe that's a reverse. That's a reverse symbol at the end. Doing the classic outro. Okay, so that's all the samples dealt with. Okay, we'll come back to the stereo automation in a sec, but let's just turn that off. What I did for this guitar pluck track is I took the Electric Mint guitar, recorded 4 bars of a chord on the, what was it, Arpland setting, and then did a bounce in place. What that means I can then do, I mean, I could have put Chromaverb on it. I tend to find the automated guitars, when you've got the sound you want, I like to bounce them in place so they're fixed and they don't accidentally start triggering a different round of samples. So when I've got the sound I'm happy with and it's bounced, I know that's definitely done. So I can put Chromaverb on that and we get this sound, which drives the track the whole way through. And obviously stops for the breakdowns. That's all there is to that. Now we're just into some transition stuff, so we can do these all in one go. So we've got some transition sounds there. Another one there. Whooshes and shorts. There's a whoosh on its own. Here's a shorter one on its own. But it's a matter of mixing these things up. So the person who's listening to it doesn't get used to the same transition and think, oh no, here we go again. Even though it's only a 2-minute cue, you will find that people start anticipating that. Now give them what they want every so often, but also mix it up as well. The last track here is the Mosaic bass. This, again, we are starting with a very simple pattern to start off with, and then moving along we just double it in an octave. So put an extra higher octave in to build it up. Let's hear the slight difference as it goes from one to the other. This is single. Now that's double octave. The last bit of automation was on this stereo out because I wanted to have a proper dip and come back in at the end of that transition. So you'll see that happen here. And then always make sure I put a little fade out on the end to make sure everything is out and there's no horrible clip at the end. So there you go. Don't forget, like and subscribe is always appreciated if you find these sort of things useful, and you'll find out when more of them come out. But that's it for now. I'll play it again as a little outro and see you in the next video. Bye for now.